I came up here for the view. That's what I keep telling myself when the sun drops behind the ridge and everything goes purple dark. When the groaning starts again from down in the valley. When I have to piss in a plastic water bottle for the 4th time today, because I can't risk going outside to the actual bathroom 20 feet away. I came up here for the goddamn view. 3 weeks ago, I was eating overpriced pancakes at a Denny's in Sacramento, scrolling through Instagram, double-tapping pictures of people I barely knew doing things I barely cared about. My manager, Linda, with her highlight yellow sticky notes and her obsession with KPIs, had just approved my vacation request. 2 weeks. The Pacific Northwest. I'd never been. Seemed like the kind of thing a 32-year-old guy who works in accounts receivable should do. Get out. Like see trees. Breathe air that doesn't smell like freeway exhaust and the collective anxiety of strip mall parking lots. The cable car station wasn't even supposed to be the main thing. It was just a stop. A tourist trap on the way to the actual destination, which was some lodge another 40 miles north where I'd booked a cabin with a hot tub. But I got here around noon on a Wednesday, September 18th, I think, though the days blur now. And the weather was perfect. 70 degrees. Clear. The kind of light that makes everything look like a postcard. The station sits at about 5,000 feet, carved into the shoulder of Mount Barlo. It's not a big operation. Just a stone and timber building with a gift shop, a small cafe, and the platform where the cable cars load. The cars themselves run up another 2,000 feet to the summit station, where there's supposedly an observation deck and a hiking trail that loops around the peak. I'd read about it on TripAdvisor. 4.5 stars. Somebody named Patty Loves Travel said the hot chocolate was adequate but overpriced. I paid $17 for a round-trip ticket from a college-age girl with a septum piercing and a name tag that said, Jess. She barely looked at me. Just slid the ticket across the counter and went back to her phone. There were maybe a dozen other people milling around. A family with 2 kids who wouldn't stop shrieking. An older couple in matching fleece vests. A guy about my age wearing expensive hiking boots that had never seen dirt. The cafe smelled like burnt coffee and prepackaged muffins. I bought one anyway. Blueberry, and it tasted like cardboard and sugar. But I ate it standing by the big windows that looked out over the valley. You could see for miles. Forests, a river cutting through. Some tiny town far below that looked like a model railroad setup. Peaceful. Empty in that way mountains are empty, which is different from how cities are empty. Cities are full of the ghosts of people. Mountains just don't give a shit. I didn't take the first cable car. I wanted to finish my coffee, which was somehow both too hot and too weak. So I sat on one of the wooden benches near the loading platform and watched the families and the hikers shuffle into the next car. The thing swayed when they climbed in. This big red gondola with windows on all sides. Held maybe 15 people. The operator, a guy in his 50s with a gray ponytail and a ranger uniform, checked tickets and latched the door. Then the whole thing lurched forward and started creaking up the cable toward the summit. I waited another 20 minutes, checked my email, responded to a text from my mom asking if I'd gotten to Portland okay, which I hadn't. But I told her yes anyway because explaining the actual itinerary would take too long and she'd just worry about me driving mountain roads alone. Then I got in line for the next car. That's when I met David. He was standing behind me, late 40s maybe, thinning hair, wire-rimmed glasses, wore a polo shirt tucked into jeans, which should have been dorky, but somehow just made him look tidy. He had a camera bag slung over one shoulder, and he was studying the view like he was trying to memorize it. First time up? He asked. I nodded. You? Third, I come every few years when I'm visiting my sister in Portland. Never gets old. We didn't talk much after that. Just the polite small talk you do with strangers when you're stuck in proximity. The weather, the hike at the top, whether the cafe's hot chocolate was worth it. He said no, stick with coffee. We ended up in the same cable car with maybe 6 other people. A young couple who spent the entire ride taking selfies. A woman who looked like she ran marathons for fun, all tight ponytail and expensive activewear. An older man traveling alone who kept coughing into his fist. The ride up took about 12 minutes. The car swayed with the wind. This gentle rocking that was soothing until you remembered you were dangling from a metal cord 500 feet above rocks and pine trees. I'm not great with heights, but I've never been the type to let it stop me. You just don't look down. You look out. You focus on the view, which really was incredible. The valley spreading out below, the river a silver thread, the forests going on forever in every direction. David pointed out landmarks. That's Cougar Ridge. That road there, that goes to Brightwood. And if you look way out, you can just barely see the edge of the reservoir. I nodded like I knew what he was talking about. The summit station was smaller than the base. Just a platform and a little warming hut with vending machines and a bathroom. The observation deck was a wooden walkway that jutted out over the cliff face, east with railings and interpretive signs about the geology and the local wildlife. The hiking trail started just beyond, disappearing into the trees. I spent maybe an hour up there. Took some pictures that I knew I'd never look at again. Walked part of the trail until my lungs started to burn from the altitude, and I remembered I hadn't exercised in 6 months. Bought a Coke from the vending machine and sat on a bench watching a hawk circle overhead. David found me there. Heading back down? Yeah, I think so. Mind if I ride with you? I hate going in those things alone. Makes me nervous. I didn't mind. We got in line with a handful of other people. The operator at the summit station was younger than the guy at the base, maybe mid-20s, with a scraggly beard and the kind of sunburn that comes from not giving a shit about SPF. He checked our tickets and waved us into the next car. That's when things started to feel off. It wasn't anything obvious, just a tension in the air. The operator kept glancing at his phone. One of the other tourists, a woman with 2 kids, asked him if the cars were running on schedule, and he said, "Should be," in a way that didn't sound convincing. The car lurched when it started its descent, harder than it had on the way up. A grinding sound somewhere in the mechanism. David noticed too. That normal? Probably, I said, but I didn't believe it. Halfway down, the car stopped. Just stopped. Swaying there in the wind, the cable above us still, the valley spread out below like a painting. At first I thought maybe it was a safety thing, someone boarding at the base or a mechanical pause. But it lasted too long. 30 seconds, a minute, 2. The marathon woman pulled out her phone. No signal. The couple stopped taking selfies. The kids got quiet, which was somehow worse than when they'd been screaming. David adjusted his glasses and stared at the base station below us. I could see people moving around down there, tiny figures on the platform. Something was happening, but I couldn't tell what. Then the car jolted forward again, and we started moving. Jesus, someone muttered. We descended the rest of the way in silence. When we reached the platform, the operator with the ponytail was arguing with someone on a walkie-talkie. His face was red. He barely looked at us as we climbed out, just waved us through like he wanted us gone. Inside the station, people were clustered around the TV in the cafe. I couldn't see the screen, but I could hear it. A news anchor, that clipped urgent tone they use. Words like outbreak and quarantine and avoid contact. Someone had turned the volume up too loud, and it was distorting, the anchor's voice crackling. I pushed through to see. The footage was from Seattle. Shaky cell phone video of people running through a street, someone on the ground, jerking, others surrounding them. The camera swung wildly, and the image cut to a newsroom, a woman in a blazer trying to look calm and failing. Reports of violent attacks in multiple cities along the West Coast. Authorities are urging residents to stay indoors and avoid. The feed cut to helicopter footage. A highway jammed with cars, smoke rising from buildings. "What the hell is this?" someone said behind me. David was next to me now. His face had gone pale. "Is this real?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. It looked real. It felt real. But it also felt impossible, like something from a movie. The kind of thing that happens to other people in other places, not to you. Not when you're on vacation eating cardboard muffins at a cable car station in the middle of nowhere. Jess, the girl from the ticket counter, came out from the back room. She looked scared. "We're closing," she said. "Everyone needs to leave, now." "What's going on?" the marathon woman demanded. "I don't know. They told us to close. You need to go." People started moving toward the exit. Confused, scared, pulling out phones and realizing there was no signal here, the mountain blocking everything. I followed the crowd because I didn't know what else to do. David was right behind me. Outside, the parking lot was chaos. People shouting, car doors slamming, a man yelling at his wife to get in the car, just get in the fucking car. I saw the family with the kids piling into a minivan, the father's hands shaking so hard he dropped his keys. I got to my rental, a dinky little Toyota sedan that smelled like air freshener and someone else's French fries, and sat there with the door open, staring at nothing. My phone had one bar. I tried calling my mom, but it wouldn't connect. Tried again, nothing. David appeared at my window. "You heading down the mountain?" "I guess. You?" "My sister's place is in Portland. 2 hours from here if the roads are clear." He paused. "You have somewhere to go?" "I was supposed to be at a lodge up north." "That's the wrong direction." I knew that. But my brain wasn't working right. I kept thinking about the news footage, the people running, the smoke. "Come with me," David said. "We'll figure it out when we get to the city." I should have said yes. Should have followed him down the mountain, found a hotel, waited for the whole thing to blow over, because surely it would blow over. These things always do. But I sat there too long, trying to decide, and David's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his face went white. "I have to go," he said. "My sister, she's... Just get out of here, okay? Don't wait." He ran to his car, a silver Honda, and peeled out of the parking lot so fast his tires screamed. I watched him disappear down the access road, dust rising. I should have followed. Instead, I sat there. 5 minutes. 10, watching people leave. The parking lot emptying. The sound of engines fading into the distance until it was just wind and the creak of the cable car cables swaying overhead. That's when I heard the screaming. It came from inside the station, high and sharp, cut off suddenly. I got out of the car, my legs moving before my brain caught up. Stupid. So fucking stupid. But you hear someone scream like that, and you can't just leave. The main entrance was open, the doors swinging in the breeze. Inside, the lights were still on. The TV was still blaring. But the place was empty. No tourists, no staff. Just overturned chairs and a spilled coffee spreading across the tile floor. "Hello?" my voice echoed. I walked toward the cafe. That's where the scream had come from. I was sure of it. The counter was abandoned. A cash register hung open. A muffin sat half-wrapped on a napkin, all one bite taken out of it. Behind the counter, in the little prep kitchen, I found Jess. She was on the floor, her back against the dishwasher, her hands pressed to her neck. Blood seeped between her fingers. Her eyes were wide and glassy, but she was breathing, fast, shallow gasps. Jesus, what happened? She tried to talk, but only a gurgling sound came out. I knelt next to her, my hands hovering uselessly because I didn't know what to do. Apply pressure? Call 911? My phone was in the car. No signal anyway. Who did this? She shook her head, tried to point toward the back hallway. Her hand was shaking so hard I almost couldn't follow it. That's when I heard the sound. A wet, dragging shuffle from somewhere in the back, like feet moving but wrong, the rhythm off, and breathing, ragged and thick. I looked at Jess. Her eyes were begging me for something. Help, escape, I don't know. I wanted to pick her up, carry her out, but she was losing so much blood, and I didn't know if moving her would make it worse. The shuffling got louder. I made a choice. I'm not proud of it. I ran. Out of the cafe, through the main room, toward the exit. My shoes slipped on the tile, and I almost went down, but caught myself on a bench. Behind me, the shuffling turned into footsteps. Fast. Too fast. I didn't look back. I hit the door and stumbled outside, into the late afternoon sun that suddenly felt wrong. Too bright, too normal. The parking lot was empty now, except for my car and two others. I sprinted for the Toyota, fumbling for my keys, my hands shaking so bad I dropped them, scooped them up, and jammed the key into the door because this piece of shit didn't have a fob. You had to actually unlock it like it was 1997. I got the door open and threw myself inside, slamming it shut and hitting the lock button. Then I looked back at the station. The ponytail operator was standing in the doorway. Except it wasn't him. Not anymore. His face was gray. His eyes were milky, the pupils blown out. His mouth hung open and there was blood on his chin, down his shirt. He swayed there for a moment, like he was trying to remember how to move. Then he turned his head toward me, saw me, started walking. Not running, walking. But with this awful jerky determination, like a marionette being pulled by a drunk puppeteer. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over, coughed, died. I tried again. It caught. I threw it into reverse and punched the gas, nearly hitting one of the other cars, cranked the wheel, shifted into drive. The operator was closer now, 10 feet, 5. I floored it. The Toyota's engine whined, but the car moved, shooting forward across the parking lot toward the access road. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing there, arms hanging at his sides, watching me go. I drove. The access road wound down the mountain in tight switchbacks, barely wide enough for 2 cars. I took the turns too fast, tires squealing, the whole car shuddering. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. I kept seeing Jess on the floor. The blood, the operator's dead eyes. 2 miles down, I hit traffic. Not moving traffic, stopped traffic. Cars abandoned in the road, doors open, engines still running, and I slammed on the brakes and sat there, staring. A Subaru with a child's car seat in the back. A truck with the driver's door hanging open and blood on the steering wheel. A motorcycle lying on its side. I got out. Stupid again, but I had to know. The forest on either side of the road was silent. No birds, no wind. Just this awful dead quiet that made my ears ring. I walked to the Subaru and looked inside. Empty. The keys were still in the ignition. A phone sat on the passenger seat. The screen cracked. Something moved in the trees. I spun around. Couldn't see anything. Just shadows and pine trunks and the fading light. Another sound, a branch snapping. I got back in the car and tried to go around the abandoned vehicles, but the road was too narrow. I'd have to push them out of the way or turn around. Turning around meant going back up the mountain, back to the station. I sat there trying to decide, my breath fogging the windshield. That's when I saw her. A woman, stumbling out of the trees onto the road. Her clothes were torn. She was missing a shoe. Her arms were covered in scratches, and her hair was matted with something dark. She saw my car and started running toward me, waving her arms. I rolled down the window an inch. "Are you okay?" Please, you have to help me. My husband, they're everywhere, they're..." She was crying, her words tumbling over each other. I unlocked the passenger door and she yanked it open, threw herself inside. "Drive," she said. "Just drive." "I can't. The road's blocked." She looked at the abandoned cars and made a sound like a wounded animal. No. What happened to you?" "We were driving down and they came out of nowhere. They pulled him out of the car. I ran. I hid. I heard him screaming. Who did this?" "I don't know. They looked wrong. They weren't..." A figure appeared in the road ahead. Then another. Then 3 more. They moved like the operator had. That same jerky walk. They were spread out across the road, blocking it completely. One of them was wearing a park ranger uniform. Another was a kid. Couldn't have been more than 12. The woman in my passenger seat started hyperventilating. "Lock the doors," I said. I threw the car into reverse and backed up, fast, not caring about the switchbacks. The figures followed, not running, just walking. But they didn't stop, didn't get tired, just kept coming. And I reversed around a curve and nearly went off the edge, the back tire slipping on gravel. Overcorrected. Hit a tree, not hard, just a thump, but enough to jolt us both. "We have to go back," the woman said. "Back to the station. There's more of them up there." "Then what do we do?" I didn't have an answer. I kept reversing until I found a wider spot in the road, managed a 3-point turn. Drove back up toward the station, my mind racing. The parking lot wasn't safe. The building wasn't safe. But maybe... The cable cars. The summit station. It was isolated. 2,000 feet up. You couldn't drive there. You couldn't walk there, not easily. The only access was the cable cars themselves. It was insane. But staying here was death. I pulled into the parking lot. The operator was gone. So was Jess, though I didn't want to think about where. I parked as close to the entrance as I could and turned to the woman. "What's your name?" "Beth." Her voice was shaking. "Beth, I'm Ryan. We're going to get on a cable car and go to the summit. It'll be safer up there." "The summit? We'll be trapped." "We're already trapped." She stared at me, her eyes red and wild. Then she nodded. We got out of the car and ran for the entrance. I had no idea if the cable cars were even still running. For all I knew, the power was out, the whole system dead. But when we burst through the doors, the lights were on. The TV was still playing the news. And through the windows, I could see one of the red gondolas sitting at the platform, empty. The control panel for the cars was behind the operator's station. I'd watched the ponytail guy use it. I'm pressing buttons, checking monitors. It looked complicated. Levers and switches and a screen showing the position of each car on the cable. "Do you know how to work this?" Beth asked. "No." I started pressing buttons anyway. The first one did nothing. The second made a buzzing sound. The third caused the platform lights to flicker. The fourth made the cable move. The gondola lurched forward a few feet, then stopped. On the screen, a red light blinked. Error, door unsecured. The door. I ran out to the platform. The gondola door was hanging open, swaying slightly. I grabbed it and pulled it shut. Heard a click. Ran back inside. The red light turned green. I hit the button again, and the cable started moving, the gondola creaking forward along the track. It was working. Holy shit, it was working. Get on, I told Beth. We ran out to the platform. The gondola was already past the loading zone, moving toward the upward slope. I grabbed one of the support poles and swung myself onto the platform that ran alongside the track, then reached for the gondola's handle. My fingers caught it. I pulled the door open. It wasn't locked, thank God, and climbed inside. Beth was right behind me. I slammed the door shut, and we both collapsed onto the bench seats, breathing hard. The gondola swayed as it climbed. Through the windows, I could see the station receding below us. The parking lot, my rental car, the access road disappearing into the trees. And figures. Dozens of them now, emerging from the forest, from the building, converging on the platform we just left. Beth saw them too. She made a small sound and turned away, pressing her face against the window on the opposite side. I watched until we rose above the tree line, and the station was just a small cluster of buildings far below. Then I closed my eyes and tried to breathe. The ride to the summit took 12 minutes. It was the longest 12 minutes of my life. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? The gondola swayed in the wind, the cable humming above us. I could see the valley spreading out to the west, bathed in orange light from the setting sun. It looked peaceful, beautiful, like nothing was wrong. But I knew better now. When we reached the summit platform, I half expected to find more of them waiting. But the platform was empty. The warming hut was dark. The observation deck was deserted. We climbed out of the gondola, and I looked around, trying to orient myself. And the summit station was smaller than I remembered. Just the platform, the hut, the bathroom facility, and the hiking trail disappearing into the trees. The observation deck jutted out over the cliff to the south. Now what? Beth asked. We wait. For what? I didn't answer because I didn't know. We went into the warming hut. It was unlocked, just a simple door with a handle. Inside were the vending machines I remembered, a few benches, and a janitor's closet. There were windows on 3 sides, big enough to see out, but small enough that I thought maybe we could board them up if we had to. Beth sank onto one of the benches and put her head in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know how. I barely knew her. Hell, I barely knew myself right now. Instead, I went to the vending machines. I checked my pockets. I had maybe $6 in cash and a credit card that probably wouldn't work even if the machines took cards, which they didn't. I fed bills into the slot and bought a Coke, a bag of chips, and a candy bar. The machine whirred and dropped them into the collection bin with a clunk that seemed too loud. I sat down next to Beth and put the food between us. You should eat, I said. She looked at the food like it was something alien. Then she picked up the chips and opened them, mechanically eating handful after handful without tasting anything. I drank the Coke. It was cold and sweet and so normal that I almost started laughing. Almost. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky went from orange to pink to purple, and the valley below disappeared into shadow. Lights came on in the distant town, the one that had looked like a model railroad. Street lights, house lights. But there were fewer than there should have been. Whole sections dark. I thought about my mom. About Linda and the office and my apartment in Sacramento with its shitty water pressure and the neighbor who played saxophone at 2 a.m. I thought about David and wondered if he'd made it to Portland, if his sister was okay. I thought about Jess bleeding out on the floor and I wanted to throw up. "We should check the trail," Beth said suddenly. I looked at her. "What?" "The hiking trail. Maybe there's another way down, or a ranger station, something." "It's dark. So we'll go in the morning." "Beth, I can't just sit here. I can't." She was right. Oh, sitting here in the dark with nothing but vending machine food and the memory of what we'd seen. That would drive us both insane. "Okay," I said. "In the morning." We tried to sleep. Beth curled up on one of the benches, using her jacket as a blanket. I took the bench across from her, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the operator's gray face, Jess's blood, the figures on the road. So I sat up and watched the windows instead. Around midnight, I saw lights moving in the valley. Not house lights. Moving lights. Like searchlights or helicopters. Too far away to see clearly. They swept back and forth over the forests and roads. And I wondered if it was the military, the National Guard, someone trying to restore order. The lights disappeared after an hour. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to gray dawn light and Beth shaking my shoulder. "Ryan, look." I sat up, my neck stiff. She was pointing out the window toward the base station. In the early morning light, I could see the parking lot. The gondola we'd ridden up was still at the summit platform. We'd never sent it back down. But another gondola was moving, climbing the cable toward us. "Did you send that?" Beth asked. "No." We both stared. The gondola climbed slowly, swaying slightly. It was too far away to see if anyone was inside. But someone had to have activated it from the base station. Someone had to be operating the controls. "Maybe it's help," Beth said. "Maybe they're coming to rescue us. Or maybe it's them." We watched the gondola climb. 5 minutes, 10. It was halfway up now, passing over the forest, and I went to the door of the warming hut and stepped outside. The air was cold, the wind sharp. I could hear the cable humming. The gondola was close enough now that I could see through its windows. There were people inside. 3 of them. 4. No, 5. Pressed against the windows. Moving. "Beth," I said quietly. She joined me outside. Saw what I saw. The gondola reached the platform and jerked to a stop. The door didn't open. The figures inside pressed against it, their hands flat on the glass. Gray faces, milky eyes, mouths opening and closing silently. One of them was wearing a park ranger uniform. "They can't get out," Beth whispered. "Not unless we open the door." We backed away from the platform. The figures in the gondola kept pressing, kept moving, like they knew we were there, like they could smell us. "Like, we need to stop the cars," I said. "They'll keep sending more." "How?" The control panel was at the base station. There was no way to operate the system from up here, at least not that I could see. Unless... I ran to the warming hut and started searching. The janitor's closet had cleaning supplies, a mop, a bucket. Nothing useful. I checked behind the vending machines, under the benches. There had to be some kind of emergency shutoff, some way to kill the power. Beth was going through the bathroom facility. I heard her opening cabinets, moving things around. "Ryan!" I ran over. She was standing in the small utility room next to the bathrooms, pointing at a metal box on the wall. It was labeled "Emergency Cutoff" in faded red letters. I opened it. Inside was a large red switch. "This'll stop the cable cars," I said. "But it'll also stop us from going down." We weren't going down anyway. She was right. I flipped the switch. Somewhere in the distance, the humming of the cable stopped. The gondola at the platform went still. The figures inside kept moving, but they weren't going anywhere now. We were stuck. The realization hit me like cold water. We were on top of a mountain. No way down except hiking, and the trail was probably full of those things. No food except what was in the vending machines. No water except what came out of the bathroom tap, and who knew how long that would last. We'd trapped ourselves. Beth seemed to realize it too. She sank down on the floor of the utility room and stared at nothing. "We'll figure it out," I said, but the words sounded hollow. The first day was the worst. Not because anything happened, because nothing happened. We sat in the warming hut and listened to silence. No helicopters, no rescue teams. Just wind and the occasional creak of the gondola at the platform, the bodies inside still pressing against the glass. I counted the vending machine inventory. 3 machines total, one with sodas and water, one with chips and candy, one with sandwiches and fruit cups that were probably expired but might still be edible. Maybe 20 items per machine, 60 items total. If we rationed carefully, that was, what, a week? 2 if we really stretched it? And then what? Beth wouldn't talk. She sat on her bench and stared out the window at the valley. Sometimes she cried silently. I wanted to say something comforting, but everything I thought of sounded stupid. Instead, I explored. The hiking trail started about 50 yards from the warming hut, marked by a wooden sign. I followed it for maybe 10 minutes, just to see. It wound through pine trees and over rocky outcroppings, heading generally north along the ridgeline. I didn't see any buildings, no ranger stations, no other trails branching off, just trees and rocks and sky. I turned back. Didn't want to get lost. When I returned to the warming hut, Beth was standing at the window looking at the gondola full of bodies. "They're not alive," she said. "But they're not dead either." "I know." "What are they?" I'd been trying not to think about it, trying not to put words to it because words made it real. But standing there with Beth, watching those gray figures press against the glass, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I think they're infected with something. A virus maybe, or a parasite, something that takes over. Like rabies. Worse than rabies. She was quiet for a long time. Then, my husband, if he's one of them now, is he still in there? Does he know what he's doing? I don't know. "I hope not," she whispered. "I hope he's just gone." That night we heard sounds from the forest. Crackling branches, something moving through the undergrowth. It could have been an animal, a deer or a bear. But it didn't sound like an animal. It sounded deliberate. Searching. We turned off all the lights in the warming hut and sat in the dark, listening. The sound circled the summit, came close to the warming hut. Something scraped against the outside wall. Beth grabbed my arm so hard her nails dug in. The scraping stopped. Minutes passed, hours. I couldn't tell. Eventually the sounds faded, moving away into the forest. We didn't sleep that night. Day 2. I forced myself to eat half a sandwich from the vending machine. It tasted like plastic and mayo. Beth had a candy bar and 3 sips of water. We needed to ration better. I made a list on a napkin I found in the bathroom. Inventory, daily allowance, 2 items per person per day, 1 bottle of water shared between us. That gave us 15 days, maybe. 15 days until what? Starvation? Rescue? The infected figuring out how to reach the summit? I tried not to think about it. Beth asked if we could move the gondola with the bodies in it. Send it back down, get it away from the platform. Without power, I don't think we can, I said. It's locked in place. We could push it. Those cables hold tons of weight. We're not strong enough. She looked like she wanted to argue, but didn't have the energy. Instead, she went outside and walked to the observation deck. I followed, keeping my distance. She stood at the railing and looked out over the valley. I can see smoke, she said. I looked. She was right. Thin columns of smoke rising from the distant town. More than yesterday. Whole sections burning now. Maybe it's a signal fire, she said. Maybe someone's trying to get help. Maybe. But I didn't believe it. That afternoon, I explored more of the trail. Went farther this time, maybe half a mile. The trail climbed higher before dropping into a saddle between two peaks. From there, I could see the other side of the mountain, a steep slope covered in scree and scattered pines. No roads, no buildings, nothing. And I sat on a rock and let myself feel despair for exactly 5 minutes. Then I stood up and walked back. Beth was sitting on the warming hut steps when I returned. I heard them again, she said. In the forest, they're still out there. How many? I don't know. More than yesterday. We went inside and locked the door. Not that it would stop them if they really wanted in. The door was just wood. The windows were just glass. But it made us feel safer. Day 3. The water from the bathroom tap started coming out brown. Not a lot. Just a tinge, like rust. But it was noticeable. I let it run for 5 minutes, hoping it would clear. It didn't. We can't drink that, Beth said. We switched to the bottled water from the vending machine. That gave us maybe 20 bottles. A week if we each drank one per day. Less if we needed water for anything else. I started thinking about the stream I'd seen from the cable car. It had to be somewhere on the mountain. If we could find it, we could boil water, make it safe. But that meant going into the forest, into their territory. Not yet. Not while we still had bottles. Beth asked about my life before. We were sitting in the warming hut trying to ignore the sounds outside. Scraping, movement, always just out of sight. I work in accounts receivable, I said. Boring office job, spreadsheets and invoices. You? I was a teacher, 3rd grade. Was. I quit last year. My husband wanted to travel. He said we should see the country while we're still young enough to enjoy it. She laughed, but it was bitter. But it was, once we made it 2 states before the world ended. It hasn't ended. Hasn't it? I didn't have an answer. She told me about her husband, Greg. They'd been married 8 years, high school sweethearts. He liked fishing and building things in their garage. She liked reading and cooking. They'd been trying for kids, but it hadn't happened yet. I'm glad now, she said, that we didn't have kids. Can you imagine? I thought about the 12-year-old on the road, the gray skin, the empty eyes. Yeah, I said. I can. That night, the scraping on the walls got louder, more persistent, like they were testing, trying to find a way in. We piled benches against the door, moved the vending machines in front of the windows. It probably wouldn't stop them, but it made us feel like we were doing something. Around 2 a.m., something hit the window hard enough to crack the glass. We both screamed. I grabbed the mop from the janitor's closet like it was a weapon. Beth pressed herself into the corner, shaking. Another hit. The crack spread. Then silence. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I approached the window slowly, looked out through the crack. In the moonlight, I could see shapes moving at the edge of the clearing. 5 or 6 of them. They swayed like trees in wind, watching. One of them started walking toward the warming hut. I backed away from the window. "Ryan?" Beth's voice was small. "Don't move." The shape reached the window, pressed its face against the glass. I could see it now. A woman, maybe 30. Her hair was matted. Her jaw hung at a wrong angle, like it had been broken. She stared through the window, directly at us, and then she opened her mouth and screamed. It wasn't human. It was this high, piercing shriek that went on, echoing off the mountains. The other shapes in the clearing took it up, all of them screaming in unison. Beth covered her ears. I did the same, but it didn't help. The sound drilled into my skull. And then it stopped. The shapes turned away and walked back into the forest. Just like that. Like they'd delivered a message and didn't need to stay. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. Day 4. The glass in the window was too damaged to leave as is. I found duct tape in the janitor's closet and used it to cover the crack. It wouldn't hold forever, but it was better than nothing. Beth was getting worse. She barely ate. She spent hours staring at the gondola full of bodies, whispering to herself, and I asked if she was okay, and she said yes, but her eyes said otherwise. I needed to do something, needed to try. "I'm going to explore the trail," I told her. "See if there's anything we can use. Water, supplies, maybe another way down. Don't leave me here. I'll be back in a few hours. Don't leave me." Her voice cracked. I stayed. That afternoon, I watched the valley through the observation deck binoculars, quarters only, which seemed absurd, but I had changed, so I used it. The distant town was mostly dark now. A few fires still burned. I saw movement on the roads, tiny figures too far away to identify. No cars, no helicopters, no signs of organized resistance. Just chaos eating the world. I thought about my mom, about whether she was safe, about whether anywhere was safe now. Mom, the quarter ran out and the binoculars went dark. Day 5. We were down to 12 bottles of water. I did the math again. 6 days. Maybe 7 if we really pushed it. The vending machine food was lasting longer than I'd expected, but that was mostly because neither of us had much appetite. I forced myself to eat. Beth barely touched anything. She was talking to the gondola now. I found her standing at the platform, her hand pressed against the glass. The bodies inside pressed back, their gray fingers splayed. "Beth, get away from there." She didn't move. "He's in there," she said. "I know he is." "Beth, Greg, he's one of them. I can feel it." "You can't know that." She turned to look at me, and her eyes were hollow. I do. Well, he came up the mountain looking for me, and now he's trapped in there, and I can't. She broke down. I pulled her away from the gondola, back to the warming hut. She collapsed on the bench and sobbed until she had nothing left. I sat with her, didn't say anything. What was there to say? That night I heard her get up. I pretended to be asleep, watched through slitted eyes as she went to the door, unlocked it, stepped outside. I followed. She was walking toward the platform, toward the gondola. "Beth, stop." She didn't. I ran after her, grabbed her arm. She tried to pull away. "Let me go." "No. I need to see him. I need to know." "You can't help him." "I can try." She was crying again, fighting me. I held on. If she opened that gondola door, if she let them out. "Please," she whispered. "Please just let me try." "I can't." I dragged her back to the warming hut. She didn't resist anymore. Just went limp, letting me pull her. Inside, I locked the door and pocketed the key. She curled up on the bench and didn't speak. I sat against the door all night, making sure she wouldn't try again. Day 6. Beth was barely responsive. She drank when I made her, ate a few bites if I put food directly in her hand, but her eyes were somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't reach. I was losing her. And if I lost her, I'd be alone up here with nothing but vending machine snacks and the memory of what the world used to be. I couldn't let that happen. I shook her awake. "Beth, look at me." She blinked slowly. "We're going to hike the trail. Find water, find supplies. Find a way off this mountain." "There's no way off." "We don't know that. We haven't looked. I don't want to. I don't care. We're going." I pulled her to her feet. She swayed but stayed upright. I grabbed 2 bottles of water and some candy bars, stuffed them in my pockets. Then I unlocked the door. The morning air was cold and sharp. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. We started walking. The trail was steeper than I remembered. Beth struggled. Her breathing labored. I had to stop every few minutes to let her catch up. Half a mile in, we found the stream. It was barely a trickle, cutting through rocks and moss. But it was water. Clear water. I knelt and cupped some in my hands. It was ice cold. I drank. It tasted like minerals and stone. Nothing like the bottled stuff, but it was real. Beth knelt beside me and drank too, and some life came back into her eyes. "We can survive on this," I said. "We can boil it if we have to. We'll be okay." She nodded. We followed the stream uphill. It led to a small spring bubbling out of the rocks. Around it, the ground was muddy. And in the mud, footprints, human footprints, fresh. Beth saw them too. Someone else is up here. Or something else. We followed the footprints. They led away from the spring, deeper into the forest. The trees grew thicker here, the canopy blocking most of the light. The prints were erratic, stumbling, dragging. I didn't want to follow them, but I had to know. 100 yards farther, we found the source. A man, late 60s maybe. Wearing a hiking pack, he was sitting against a tree, his head tilted back. His eyes were open. Dead. Beth gasped. I approached slowly. No gray skin, like no milky eyes. Just a dead man who'd maybe had a heart attack or gotten lost and succumbed to exhaustion. His pack was still on. I felt sick doing it, but I searched through it. Granola bars, water purification tablets, a first aid kit, a knife, a lighter, a map of the mountain. "I'm sorry," I whispered to him. I took the pack. We hiked back to the warming hut in silence. Beth looked shaken but more present than she'd been in days. The supplies helped. The proof that we could survive up here, that we weren't completely helpless. But that night, as I studied the map by flashlight, I realized something. The trail we'd been on didn't lead down the mountain. It connected to other trails, sure, but they all looped back or dead-ended at viewpoints. There was no easy descent from this side. The only way down was the cable car, and we'd shut it off. Day 7. I told Beth what I'd realized. She took it better than I expected. Maybe because she'd already given up. Maybe because knowing the truth was better than false hope. "So we're stuck," she said. "For now. Forever. We have water. We have some food. We can hunt maybe. Forage. For how long? Weeks? Months? And then what?" I didn't answer. She stood and walked to the observation deck. I followed. She leaned against the railing and looked out at the valley. "It's beautiful up here," she said, "if you ignore everything else." I had to agree. The mountains stretched out in every direction, blue and green and endless. The sky was clear. The air tasted clean. If we'd come up here 2 weeks ago, before everything went to hell, this would have been paradise. Now it was a prison. "I've been thinking," Beth said, "about the cable car." "What about it?" We could turn it back on, send the gondola with the bodies down, bring up another one. Maybe there's supplies at the base station, food, water, something. We'd have to go down there to load it. Not necessarily. We could rig something, lower a basket, or... She trailed off. Or we go down ourselves, I finished. She nodded. It was insane. Suicidal. The base station was crawling with infected. We'd seen them. Going back down there would be death. But staying up here was just slow death. I didn't commit either way. Just filed it away as an option. A last resort. That night, lying on the bench staring at the ceiling, I let myself think about my mom. She'd be worried by now. I hadn't called in over a week. She'd try my cell, and it would go straight to voicemail. She'd call the hotel where I was supposed to be staying, and they'd say I never checked in. Would she file a missing persons report? Drive up to Oregon herself to look for me? God, I hoped not. I hoped she was safe. Barricaded in her house with her neighbors, riding this out. I hoped the infection hadn't reached Sacramento yet. But I knew better. If it had spread this fast here, it would have spread everywhere. The whole world was probably gone. Day 8. Beth was doing better. She helped me inventory the supplies again. The vending machines were down to maybe 30 items. The water bottles were at 8. But we had the stream. We had the purification tablets from the dead hikers pack. We could last a month up here, maybe more. The question was, did we want to? I brought up the cable car idea again. If we're going to do it, we should do it soon, I said. While we still have the energy, the strength. What's the plan? We turn the power back on, send the gondola with the bodies down, then we ride down ourselves, fast, get into the station, grab whatever supplies we can, and get back in a gondola before they overwhelm us. That's not a plan, that's a prayer. You have a better idea? She didn't. We spent the day preparing. I sharpened the knife from the hiker's pack. Beth found a crowbar in the janitor's closet. Why there was a crowbar in a warming hut, I had no idea. But I wasn't complaining. We filled every water bottle, ate until we weren't hungry. If we were going to do this, we needed to be ready. That night we heard the screaming again. Multiple voices, coming from different directions. They surrounded the summit, circling like wolves. Beth gripped the crowbar. I held the knife. But they didn't attack, just screamed and screamed and screamed. It lasted an hour. When it finally stopped, my ears were ringing and my hands were shaking. They're trying to break us, Beth said, psychologically. It's working. We didn't sleep. Day 9, decision time. We stood in the utility room, staring at the red emergency cutoff switch. Once we flip this, there's no going back, I said. I know. We could die down there. We're dying up here. She had a point. I flipped the switch. The cable system hummed to life. Through the window, I could see the gondola at the platform shudder. The bodies inside reacted, pressing harder against the glass. I went to the control panel. We'd found a manual in one of the drawers, technical diagrams and instructions. It took me 20 minutes to figure out how to send the gondola down without riding in it. The gondola lurched forward, started descending. We watched it go. The bodies inside swayed with the movement. One of them fell, pressed against the floor. The others trampled over it. The gondola disappeared below the tree line. Now we wait for it to reach the bottom, I said. Then we bring up an empty one and ride it down. How long? 12 minutes down, 12 back. Plus whatever time it takes to automatically reset at the base. We waited. 20 minutes. 30. The cable kept moving, but no gondola appeared. Something's wrong, Beth said. I checked the control panel. A yellow light was blinking. Warning. Car 3 stalled. It stuck. Where? I checked the position indicator. The gondola was about a quarter of the way down. Just stopped. Can we override it? I tried every button, every combination. Nothing worked. The gondola was stuck and the system wouldn't let us send another car until it was cleared. Fuck. I slammed my fist on the panel. Beth sank onto a bench. So that's it. We're stuck. I wanted to scream, wanted to break something. We'd been so close. But anger wouldn't help. I forced myself to think. The gondola was stuck. We couldn't override the system from here. That meant someone had to physically go to the gondola and fix it, which meant riding the cable outside the gondola. It was insane. The cable was barely thick enough to hold onto. The drop was hundreds of feet. The wind up here could gust to 40 miles per hour, but it was the only option. I'm going out there, I said. Beth looked at me like I'd lost my mind. You'll die. Probably. But if I don't, we're stuck here until we starve. Ryan, I'm doing this. I didn't give her time to argue. I grabbed the rope from the hiker's pack and went outside. The cable stretched away from the platform, disappearing into the trees. The gondola was visible as a red speck in the distance. I tied one end of the rope around my waist. The other I looped around the cable. It wasn't a proper harness. It probably wouldn't save me if I fell. But it was something. I climbed onto the platform railing, reached up and grabbed the cable. It was thicker than I expected, maybe 3 inches in diameter. Cold steel that bit into my palms. I pulled myself up, got my legs around the cable, started inching forward. The ground dropped away beneath me. Don't look down. Don't look down. I looked down. The platform was already 30 feet behind me. Below was nothing but trees and rocks. If I fell, don't think about it. I kept moving, hand over hand, legs gripping the cable. The wind pushed at me. The cable swayed. My arms were already burning. 50 feet, 100. The gondola was closer now. I could see it hanging there, motionless. The bodies inside had noticed me. They were pressing against the side facing me, their hands reaching through the windows. 200 feet. My hands were cramping. My legs were numb. I had to rest, but there was nowhere to rest. Just the cable and the void. Keep moving. The gondola was 10 feet away now. I could see the problem. The wheel assembly that ran along the cable had jumped the track. A mechanical failure. Maybe from the weight of the bodies inside. I reached the gondola, grabbed onto the roof, pulled myself up. The bodies below me went crazy, shrieking, pounding on the roof from inside. The whole gondola rocked. I nearly lost my grip. Steady, steady. I examined the wheel assembly. It had come off the track on one side. If I could lever it back on, the gondola would be free. I pulled out the knife, used it as a pry bar. The wheel resisted. I put all my weight into it. Come on, come on. The wheel shifted, caught the track. The gondola lurched forward. I scrambled to grab the cable as the gondola dropped away beneath me. My fingers caught, held. I hung there, my whole body weighed on my hands. Below me, the gondola was descending. The bodies inside were still shrieking. I got my legs back around the cable and started the agonizing journey back. My arms were shaking. My vision was blurring. I didn't know if I'd make it. 200 feet, 100, 50. I saw Beth on the platform, reaching out. Come on, you're almost there. 20 feet, 10. I grabbed her hand. She pulled. I collapsed onto the platform, my whole body trembling. You did it, she said. You actually did it. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe, but I'd done it. The gondola reached the base station and reset automatically. A few minutes later, an empty gondola started climbing toward us. We were going down. We gathered everything we could carry: the knife, the crowbar, the rope, water bottles, the lighter. Beth wore the hiker's pack. I stuffed my pockets with granola bars. When the empty gondola reached the platform, we climbed in, and I hit the button to send us down. The gondola lurched, started descending. Through the windows, I could see the forest rising around us, the base station coming into view, and the infected. Dozens of them, crowding the parking lot, surrounding the building. They'd seen us. They were waiting. "We go fast," I said. "Straight to the supply room. Grab what we can. Back to the gondola, understand?" Beth nodded, gripping the crowbar. The gondola reached the platform. I opened the door. The infected were 20 feet away, 30. They started moving toward us. We ran. Inside the building, I made for the cafe. The supply room was in back. Beth was right behind me, her footsteps echoing. Behind us, the infected poured through the entrance. The supply room door was unlocked. Inside were shelves of food, canned goods, bottled water, freeze-dried meals. I started shoving things into the pack. Beth grabbed a box of granola bars. More water. The footsteps outside were getting closer. "We have to go." We ran back through the cafe. The infected were in the main room now, a mass of gray skin and reaching hands. We veered toward the side exit, the one that led to the employee parking area. Burst through the door into daylight. 5 infected were waiting. Beth swung the crowbar, connected with one skull. It dropped. She swung again. I had the knife. Stabbed wildly. Felt it sink into something soft. Pulled it free. We broke through, sprinted around the building toward the platform. More infected came from the parking lot. We dodged. Beth tripped, went down. I pulled her up. The platform was ahead. The gondola was still there, door open. We dove inside. I slammed the door shut, hit the button. The gondola jerked, started climbing. Infected hands slapped against the windows, grabbed the undercarriage. One of them was hanging on, being pulled up with us. I stabbed through the window gap. The hand released. We rose. The infected fell away. The base station receded below. We'd made it. Beth was crying, laughing, both at the same time. I collapsed on the bench, my heart hammering. We'd actually made it. The gondola climbed. I watched the forest pass by below, watched the figures at the base station grow smaller. We were going back to the summit, back to our prison. But at least we had food now. Water. We could survive. For how long, I didn't know. But for now, it was enough. The gondola reached the summit platform. We climbed out, carrying our supplies. Beth looked at me. "We can't do that again." "I know." We went into the warming hut, unpacked the supplies, inventory, 40 cans of soup, 30 bottles of water, 20 freeze-dried meals, enough for weeks, maybe months. That night, we allowed ourselves to feel relief. We ate real food, heated a can of soup with a lighter and some cardboard. It tasted like heaven. We didn't hear screaming that night. Didn't hear anything except wind. Maybe the infected had given up. Maybe they'd moved on. Or maybe they were just waiting. Day 10. I woke to sunlight and the smell of pine. Beth was already awake, sitting on the observation deck. I joined her. The valley below was changing. The fires had mostly burned out. The smoke was thinner. But I couldn't see any movement. No cars, no people. Just stillness. "Do you think anyone's left?" Beth asked. "Oh, somewhere. The world's big, but not here. Probably not." We sat in silence, watching the sun climb. "I've been thinking," she said. About what you said, about surviving up here long term. Yeah? We'd need more than just food and water. We'd need purpose, a reason to keep going. Staying alive is a reason. Is it? I didn't have an answer. She stood. I'm going to hike the trail today, all the way around, see what's out there. You want company? No. I need to do this alone. I watched her go. Worried. But I understood. Sometimes you need to prove to yourself that you can still move forward. I spent the day organizing the supplies, rationing out meals, calculating how long we could last. 6 weeks minimum. 8 if we supplemented with foraged food, berries, edible plants. The hiker's pack had a guidebook, and I could learn. We could adapt. Beth returned at sunset. She looked tired but lighter somehow. There's a cave, she said. About 2 miles north. Big enough for shelter. Fresh water nearby. If we needed to leave the warming hut, we could go there. Good to know. And I didn't see any of them, not one. That was good news. Maybe they'd migrated down the mountain, following the scent of easier prey, or maybe they were just better at hiding than we thought. Day 11. I started a journal, found a notebook in the janitor's closet, probably used for maintenance logs, and started writing. The date, the weather, what we ate, how we felt. It seemed important to record it, to prove we'd been here, that we'd survived. Beth asked what I was writing. Just thoughts, I said. She nodded. Didn't push. That night she told me about her childhood. Growing up in Michigan, her parents' divorce, her first teaching job. I told her about my job, my apartment, the saxophone player. We talked until we ran out of words, then we sat in comfortable silence. It felt almost normal. Day 12. The water from the tap was running clear again. I didn't trust it. We stuck with bottled and the stream, but it was encouraging. Meant the infrastructure hadn't completely collapsed yet. Beth and I made a plan. We'd spend a week consolidating, making the summit as livable as possible. Then we'd scout more of the mountain, see if there were other survivors, other places to go. It felt good to have a plan. That afternoon, Beth screamed. I ran outside. She was at the platform, pointing. A helicopter. Far in the distance, flying low over the valley. I ran to get the lighter. We could signal, start a fire, make smoke. But by the time I got back, the helicopter was gone. We waited, watched. It didn't return. They didn't see us, Beth said. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe. But we both knew they wouldn't. Day 13. I found mushrooms growing near the stream. Used the guidebook to identify them. Oyster mushrooms, edible. We fried them on a flat rock over the lighter flame. They were tough and earthy but good. Real food. Something we'd provided for ourselves. It felt like a victory. Beth smiled for the first time in days. That night we heard something new. Not screaming, not scraping. Music. Faint, distorted, coming from somewhere down the mountain. We stood outside listening. It sounded like a radio, a recording. It played for maybe 5 minutes and then cut off. Someone's down there, Beth whispered. Or something's playing a recording. We should check it out. Not tonight, but tomorrow. Tomorrow we'd follow the sound. Day 14. We hiked toward where we thought the music had come from. The trail led us down the north slope. Steeper than the other side, harder to navigate. After an hour, we found the source. A ranger station. Small. Just one room. The door was hanging open. Inside was chaos. Overturned furniture, blood on the walls, a radio on the table, still on but silent now. And bodies. 2 of them. Rangers. Both infected. Both dead now, Their skulls caved in. Someone had fought here. Someone had won. But where were they now? Beth found a note on the table. "Gone to the fire lookout tower. If anyone finds this, we're there. M." A map was next to it, and the fire lookout tower was marked. 5 miles east. "We should go," Beth said. "It could be a trap." It could be people. Real people. I looked at the dead rangers, the blood, the note. "Tomorrow," I said. "We'll go tomorrow." We returned to the warming hut. Prepared. Packed supplies, checked our weapons. If there were people at the lookout tower, we needed to be ready. For anything. Day 15. We left at dawn. The hike to the lookout tower was brutal. Steep switchbacks, loose rock. My legs were burning after the first mile, but we kept going. After 3 hours, we saw it. A tall metal structure rising above the trees. The tower. We approached cautiously, weapons ready. The door at the base was locked. A voice called down from above. "Who's there?" "Survivors," Beth shouted, "from the cable car station." Silence, and then, "Come up," slowly. We climbed the stairs. They creaked under our weight. At the top was a small cabin. Inside, a woman, maybe 40. Dark hair, rifle in her hands. "You been bitten?" she asked. "No." "Show me." We stripped off our jackets, showed our arms, necks, clean. She lowered the rifle. "I'm Monica. I've been here 10 days. You're the first living people I've seen." "We're at the summit station," I said. "We came down because we heard the radio." "That was me. I've been broadcasting every night, hoping someone would hear." She invited us to sit, made us tea from a propane stove. We talked, shared stories. She'd been a ranger here for 6 years. When the outbreak started, she'd grabbed supplies and come to the tower. It was defensible, remote. She'd seen the infected, fought them, killed them. But she was alone, and loneliness was worse than fear. "You should stay," she said. "The 3 of us. We could make this work." Beth looked at me. I looked at her. It was tempting, so tempting. But something felt wrong. "We need to think about it," I said. Monica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, take your time." That night, sleeping in the tower, I had dreams. Bad dreams. I woke to voices. Beth and Monica, talking in hushed tones. I pretended to sleep, listened. "Can't trust him," Monica was saying. "He's weak. He'll get us killed." "Ryan's kept me alive this long," Beth said. "By luck. But luck runs out." Silence. Then Monica. "We'd be better off without him." I stopped pretending to sleep, sat up. Both of them looked at me. "Morning," Monica said, like she hadn't just suggested killing me. I didn't respond, just gathered my things. "We're leaving," I told Beth. "Ryan, now." Beth looked between us, then she stood. "I'm sorry," she said to Monica, "but I'm with him." Monica's face hardened. "Fine, go. Die out there." We left, didn't look back. On the hike back, Beth apologized. I should have realized she was off. "You were desperate for human contact." We both were. "Still, I'm sorry." We made it back to the warming hut by nightfall. It felt like coming home. Day 16. I thought about Monica, about how desperation can warp people, make them paranoid, cruel. I wondered if Beth and I would end up the same way, if we hadn't already. But sitting in the warming hut, eating mushrooms and canned soup, watching the stars through the windows, I felt something like peace. Maybe this was enough. Then maybe survival didn't have to mean escape. Maybe it just meant finding a place where you could exist, where you could wake up another day and call it a victory. Beth seemed to feel it too. "I think we're going to be okay," she said. I wanted to believe her. Day 20, time blurred. We fell into a routine: wake with the sun, check the supplies, hike to the stream, forage for food, return before dark. The infected stopped coming. We didn't know why. Maybe they'd moved on. Maybe they'd all died. Maybe the disease burned itself out. We didn't care. We were safe. Beth started a garden, found seeds in the ranger station, planted them in soil near the warming hut. They probably wouldn't grow. Wrong altitude, wrong season. But it gave her something to do, something to hope for. I repaired the cracked window, used wood from the forest and nails from the janitor's closet. It wasn't pretty, but it held. We were making this place ours. Day 30. The helicopter came back, different from before, military. It circled the summit twice. We ran outside, waving, shouting. It hovered. A door opened. Someone looked down at us. We kept waving. The helicopter dropped something, a package. Then it flew away. Inside the package, MRS, water purification kits, a radio, a note. Quarantine zones established. Portland safe zone operational. Stay where you are. Rescue operations will resume when possible. FEMA. We stared at it. They're coming back, Beth said. Eventually. But they know we're here now. Yeah. It should have felt like hope. Instead, it felt like the world was remembering we existed. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be remembered. Day 40. The radio crackled to life. A voice, automated, repeating every hour. This is a message from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. If you are receiving this, you are in a quarantine zone. Do not attempt to leave your current location. Military and civilian rescue operations are ongoing. Portland safe zone now accepting evacuees. Stay calm. Help is coming. We listened to it loop. Should we respond? Beth asked. I don't know. If we responded, they'd know exactly where we were. They'd prioritize us for rescue. But rescue meant leaving the summit, entering the quarantine zones, the safe zones. Did we want that? I didn't know anymore. Day 50. Beth's garden sprouted, tiny green shoots pushing through the soil. She cried when she saw them. I understood. It meant life could still happen, even here, even now. We celebrated with the last of the freeze-dried meals, made a feast. It was the best meal I'd had in months. That night, lying under the stars, Beth asked me if I was happy. Happy? I said. Yeah, here, now, are you happy? I thought about it. I'm alive, I said. That's something. But are you happy? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Day 60. The decision was made for us. A storm came. Massive. Snow and wind and temperatures dropping below freezing. The warming hut wasn't insulated. We burned everything we could to stay warm. Cardboard, wood from broken benches, the guidebook. It wasn't enough. Beth got sick. Fever, chills. I tried to keep her warm, wrapped her in every piece of clothing we had. But she kept getting worse. Like we have to call for help, I said. No. Beth, if we call, they'll take us away. I don't want to leave. You'll die if we stay. Then I'll die here. I grabbed the radio anyway, hit the emergency beacon. Within an hour, the helicopter was back. They landed on the summit, medics, soldiers. They took Beth on a stretcher. She looked at me as they carried her away. I'm sorry, I said. She didn't respond. They told me to get in the helicopter. I refused. Sir, you can't stay here. Watch me. This area is still under quarantine. It's not safe. Safer than down there. The soldier looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was. But I wasn't leaving. They left without me. The helicopter lifted off, disappeared into the storm. I was alone. Day 70. The storm passed. I repaired what I could, buried what I couldn't. The warming hut was damaged. One wall collapsed. The vending machines were empty. But I had the cave Beth had found. I moved there. It was smaller, darker. But it was shelter. I survived. Day 80. I stopped counting days. What was the point? Time didn't mean anything anymore. There was only now. The next meal, the next sunrise. I found a rhythm. Wake, eat, hike, sleep. Sometimes I thought about Beth, about Monica, about David, about everyone who was gone. Most of the time I didn't think at all. One day, I don't know which, I climbed back to the warming hut. The gondola was still at the platform, empty, waiting. I stood at the controls, my hand on the switch. I could go down, find out what happened to Beth, to the world, or I could stay. I stood there for an hour, maybe more. Then I walked away, back to the cave, back to my life, alone on the mountain, but alive. And maybe that was enough. The cable car still sits at the summit station, waiting. I see it sometimes when I hike past, red against the green of the pines, a reminder of what was, what could be. But I don't touch it, because I've realized something. The infection didn't just take the world, it gave me something too. Freedom, from expectations, from routine, from the endless grind of a life I never chose. Up here, I'm not Ryan, the accounts receivable guy. I'm just Ryan, and that's enough. The garden Beth started still grows. I tend it, add to it. Carrots now, potatoes, things that can survive the altitude. I eat what I grow, drink from the stream, hunt rabbits when I can, smoke the meat over fires. I'm surviving, not just existing, surviving. And some days, when the sun hits the valley just right and the wind carries the smell of pine, I'm even happy. The radio still crackles occasionally. Messages from the safe zones, promises of rescue, of rebuilding. I don't respond. Let them think I'm dead. Let them think the mountain claimed me. Because in a way, it did. The old Ryan is gone. The one who cared about spreadsheets and vacation days and whether the neighbor's saxophone was too loud. He died with the world. What's left is something simpler. Something that knows how to start a fire, how to find food, how to be alone without being lonely. I'm not waiting for rescue anymore. I am the rescue. From everything I used to be. From everything the world wanted me to be. Up here, on this mountain, in this cable car station turned fortress turned home, I'm free. And I'm never coming down. Maybe I will. I have everything I need right here. For now, thanks for watching, guys. I will be back with another story.